Yeah, I would like to thank you for joining us, everybody. First time after the summer break. And today we have two good friends of mine, Ketil Skanke from all the way from Norway and Maurice Daly from Ireland. And they will further introduce themselves, of course, but they will have I think, a very nice session about moving your buyers and driver management to the cloud. So it's a question I get a lot from customers. Hopefully I will also learn something today. Uh, I definitely will learn something today. But first, let's thank our sponsors. Without our sponsors, we're not able to run this user group. And normally we fly in speakers if we have an on-premises event. Now it's a little bit easier virtual, but hopefully we get a good press conference later today, and we will be able to organize an on-premises event later this year again. So hopefully we will be in touch very soon. Follow us on social media, the usual places to go to. We are there, so make sure to follow us, and you will be the first one to know when we have an on-premises event or the next virtual event. And speaking about upcoming events, next week we have a live Ask Me Anything podcast about Windows 365 with Christian Brinkhoff. Ronnie and Franz are running this. And in 2 weeks, we have the two brothers from another mother. They say it always. So Dieter and Robert, two long-time MVPs, talking about the backup strategy, moving the backup strategy to the cloud. And on the 12th of October, we will be announcing the next session soon. And it can be you. If you want to present at our user group, make sure to go to Sessionize, submit your session, and then you might be presenting the session on the 12th of October. With that, I want to hand it over to Jan and Maurice. The floor is yours, guys.
Great stuff here. Thanks very much. And thanks for inviting us. We're happy to be here. So together with Jan, we're going to be going through some of the work that we're currently doing. I think we talked about some of this stuff before quite a while ago, but things happen. But we're getting there. We're nearly at the end of this. And we're going to give you, this is going to be like a community solution, as always, community first, where we're talking about bias and driver management in the cloud. So we've done the sponsor slides. So just two introductions today, just me and Jan. So here's a bit about me. So my name is Maurice Daly. Like Peter said, I'm based out of Ireland. I'm Microsoft MVP for the past 5 years. My hobbies are coding, PowerShell, and Formula One. And my main focus has been endpoint management, so management of Windows devices through Configuration Manager, more so now probably for me through Intune. I blog on the MS Endpoint Manager blog, and I tweet occasionally at modaily_IT. That's enough about me. Let's talk about him. Hello, Jan.
Hey, you mean me?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Jan Ketil Skanke, and I'm from Norway. And I do basically the same as Maurice. I have the same hobbies, except I don't like Formula One because that's just boring. And I tweet as well. I have maybe the half of the amount of followers as Maurice. So follow me. If you don't follow Maurice, it's okay. You don't have to, but just follow me. Then I will be very happy. I just need like 3,000 to catch up with Maurice. So yeah, very short. I'm from Norway. I blog at msnpointmanager.com. You can find me on Twitter. And yeah, my hobbies is automation and PowerShell for sure. I have added a new hobby lately, and that's log analytics. And the other hobby I have is my motorbike.
Yes,
Thank you.
and of course the White Devil as well.
Yeah, nah, that's not a hobby. That's a transport.
You're always taking videos of it driving itself, so.
Yeah.
All right. So, so our agenda today. We're going to keep this quite simple. We're going to talk about a solution that me and Jan are putting the final touches to. And towards the end, we want your feedback, right? So this is like really important. Use the guys that might be using this solution. So it's important to tell us what we haven't thought about, what you would like to see, etc., before we go ahead and release this. So the agenda is BIOS updates. Why should you care? OEM Windows Update for Business, firmware delivered through Windows Update, and that's obviously a new thing. Especially, well, new thing if you're not using Microsoft hardware. The need to control, and it's all about testing, and we'll talk about our experiences as consultants, working with customers and what they see going on in their environment, and why you may not want to get the latest and greatest of things just being thrown down to your machine. Automation for the win. So I remember when automation for me just meant PowerShell, but unfortunately today it means like Jan, like what does automation mean? How many different products? Yeah.
It means log analytics. It means Azure functions. It means Key Vault. It means Azure Automation Account. But still, PowerShell is in the core of everything we do. But yeah, there is a lot more into it than it used to be. It's not just a batch job you run on a schedule on a server anymore.
Yeah, and this is one of those things that, you know, we'll talk a little bit later on, but you as the admin, some people find it difficult to reach over into this automation side of things because they don't have access to subscriptions and log analytics workspaces and stuff like that. But unfortunately, as you'll learn more and more, if you're doing stuff in the cloud, you need to actually get this stuff, because if you don't, you're really missing out. And then we're going to have feedback and questions and answers. You know, does this help you? How can we help others? You know, do you have feedback, and so on. So to make a start, BIOS updates. Why should you care? Well, OEMs provide BIOS updates for a reason. It's not just about keeping the BIOS, coding guys, you're writing COBOL employed. It's nothing like that. I mean, we've got something happening on October the 5th that requires some tweaking and like firmware releases and stuff like that, and it's Windows 11. And of course, we need security and stability improvements. And one of the big things that I think a lot of us got introduced into the world of making sure that our firmware was up to date was Spectra and Meltdown when it came out. Okay, this vulnerability was discovered, and all of a sudden, organizations were scrambling to patch their devices. And then we got into really some weird kind of territory where we quickly discovered that maybe we have BIOS passwords on some devices, we don't have them on others. And in the most novel of cases, we have a different password per machine, which makes automation super easy. Maybe not. But here we can look at the graphs where we can see the actual statistics on the critical vulnerabilities that are out there on devices. And I've just taken 4 different models across 4 different vendors. This just to demonstrate that the number one critical update is for actually the BIOS. Okay, so most people think it's for driver issues and things like that. No, it's BIOS related typically. And if I take 2 HP models here, for instance, we look at the list of critical updates. So these are softbacks marked as critical in HP's XML that we're consuming to do some reporting that we'll show later and to do some matching in the driver automation tool. But on the left, we have the Dragonfly G2, which I have with me here today, and we've done some work on. And okay, there was one software update. It's a brand new machine. There's not a lot of updates out for it, so it doesn't look fantastic. But if we take something a bit older, HP ProBook 650 G3, we can see that the BIOS and firmware, okay, so and sometimes that the firmware also kind of goes into the area of the BIOS. So that accounts for about 62% of all those critical updates on that device. So this is why we need to do that. And if we look at the kind of devil in the detail, this is for the Dragonfly G2 that I have here. And we can see I've got two soft packs, right? And just look at the amount of CVEs the one on the left fixes. Okay, and then we look at the one on the right. Okay, fixes an issue where certain BIOS settings or help messages are incomplete when the language is not changed to non-English. Okay, so we change it to non-English, and all of a sudden we're missing entries. I mean, that's not good. Going down though, we can see that we have a load of CVEs addressed. We have issues with like USB Pixie Booting, for instance, to enhance stability and compatibility. I mean, who here has had a USB or USB-C, these kind of things here, device? They plugged it in, Pixie booted it, and it worked, right? And then we have another device. It looks the same, and we try it, and it just doesn't work. And it's firmware or something silly on the machine. BIOS isn't incompatible, that kind of stuff. I'm sure we've all had it, and it kind of wrecks your head as you're trying to do disk imaging and things like that. But the point is that there's just so much fixes today that are coming through in the firmware. And you know what has been addressed in that area? Well, the one thing that we see now, of course, is OEM updates through Windows Update for Business. Okay, so if we have a look at what we can do with Intune today. So we can go through Windows Autopilot. We can push down Win32 apps. We can do PowerShell scripts. We've got other things available, you know, line of business apps and so on. But if we want to manage this stuff ourselves, and post deployment, you know, how often are you controlling firmware and drivers post provisioning? Well, what the OEMs have done is they've worked with Microsoft to come up with a solution on this. But as I say here, you know, most OEM provide solutions, but not all are equal. So they have their own integrations, and there's just a few of them that are mentioned there. Microsoft has been, I suppose, the one that's been driving what they can do through Intune for quite a while. So they've been delivering firmware updates through the UEFI capsule, through Windows Update for Business, and you know that I hear nothing but good things on organizations we work with Microsoft devices. But you know, Lenovo had a Lenovo System Update, and Dell have Dell Command Update. What I think we're focusing on today, though, because this is going to be the first manufacturer that we really support for, is HP, and it's not that they sent us some nice shiny devices, but yeah, thank you very much for that. All the same. But no, the reason that we are going with HP initially, I suppose there's two things. Number one, we're kind of selfish, and we're actually working with some large customers with lots of HP devices. And number two, and actually I think this is probably actually the more important thing, they have an excellent PowerShell module. Okay, the CMSL. Okay, so with that, it's in the PowerShell gallery. You can install it on devices, and we've been doing some of this stuff with likes of Teams meeting room devices for quite a while. So what does this look like? So we have support for firmware updates through the normal Windows update process. Okay, it leverages a mechanism built into UEFI, which basically is called a UEFI capsule, that it can inject the BIOS update, and that's without a password as well. So at present, right now, if you were to use the flash, you would need to specify a password if you have a password in the device. But HP are looking to expose that as well, so we can use UEFI capsules instead. Yeah, and John Markham just pointed out, HP announced today, yes, they have a new service for doing this. Are they selling our solution? No, they're not selling our solution. And no, Nathan Cathal in HP, by the way, he's a super awesome guy. But we've been liaising with Nathan, and I know HP are working on that solution that got announced, and I'm yet to see a demo of it. But the idea is, Dan, we work with other customers. Do they have other devices other than HP?
Yes, they do. And this is the problem, right? Is that one customer doesn't have just one OEM. Some has, of course, but we have multiple customers who has more than one vendor delivering hardware. And then are they going to run all these different hardware vendor tools out on their clients and to manage this? And yes, this new service that comes out from HP, we have already talked with them, and it's going to be easy for us to switch to integrate with the UEFI capsules instead when they release that. So it's not like our solution is not future ready, because it will be. We actually got that confirmed from HP that this can be used even further on. But what HP solution will do is deliver this without any kind of big control. It will just give you the latest BIOS. So if you have older devices running 3-4 versions back and the latest BIOS is not good for you because there's some issues with it, and you don't want to deploy it to your 10,000 devices of that model, then you have no way. I don't know about this new service, but up until now, it's not that easy to control the version. And this is some of the things we're looking into as well. And if you look at this Windows Update for Business, so yes, they have this support, but in real life, does it actually work for the customers, Maurice? Does it actually update the BIOS on their devices?
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a caveat. So you have to have a supported model. So there is actually a white paper on that, right? Which I have a link to now in a second. And yeah, we've seen it on some models where they are updating, some aren't doing that also. And it can be because stuff like passwords are getting in the way as well. Yeah, I mean, the HP service is going to, sure, it's going to solve a problem for HP, the primary HP customers, of course. But the idea for us is we like to stay where we can provide a solution for multiple OEMs, just like we have, for the past few years with the stuff that me and Nikolai have done. And if you don't use it, that's fine. If you use just the OEMs, that's fine as well. But we just wanted to give a solution that's community driven, and then you can build your own reports, and you can show that data in your own way without relying on an OEM. Okay, not that they don't do fantastic stuff as well.
But I believe that if HP is going to, I haven't seen the announcement, but in my head, I'm thinking this will be integrated with TechPulse or something like that. And then it's, yeah. I don't know. I don't have time to read this right now, but thank you for the link. But at least they do have some enterprise versions to help enterprises keep on track on their BIOS and drivers and everything. And customer using it, they have not been super happy with it so far. So we'll see how that goes. It doesn't necessarily give you what you want.
Yeah, and briefly just scanning down through that, yeah, I mean, it was kind of what we had chatted to Nathan about, where it can push down BIOS settings. And we were also thinking along the same lines of that. But the idea is that with the community solution that we're going to put together is we're just leveraging what HP and the other OEMs give us. So if HP gives us a way of getting that data, great. If they give us a PowerShell module, great. If Dell have a different way and Lenovo have a different way, well, then it's fine. We'll cater for them as well, but we'll do so in a streamlined process that it just looks the same to you, no matter what vendor they are. Okay, so I'm sure HP's own solution will bring its own benefits. And I'm like Jan, I'm yet to see it in action, so I can't really comment on full at the moment. But if you're worried about the latest BIOS going down to your devices, and you've got one of the devices which are contained inside the link at the bottom, here's a setting that you need to do on your BIOS, okay, to stop that happening. Because if they're using Windows Update for Business, they are by default going to get that updated BIOS. And we've spoken with customers where they've got tens of thousands of the same model, and they see issues going between certain BIOS releases. And like I said, it might be something as silly as an incompatibility with an external USB-C NIC, for instance. And it could be more wide-ranging, where they start seeing sporadic BitLocker recovery things happening and stuff like that. So the idea to control this stuff is where we're coming from.
But I wanna skip back and just so we have the Windows Update for Business, right? And I just want to show you guys a picture from a customer who has not disabled anything. They were under the impression that their BIOS was kind of up to date, right? So I went in and created a report for them. And they have a bunch of different models, if you can see my screen. And they have multiple, they have the total of around 23,000 HP devices, which I've been focusing this report on. And we can see here that out of the 23,000 devices, it's only 16.5, no, it's only 6.3 that actually has updated firmware. The rest is running older BIOS versions. And also we can, of course, by using this method, we will go into details on this report later when we show from our own environment with much less devices. But here we can go and select a model, and we can say we want to look at, for instance, the Dragonfly G2. And we can see here that even this brand new device does not have updated BIOS. They only have one, but still they are, all the devices have the same issue. There is no, they're not updated. And if you click on the actual query, and I can remove this filter on the models, and then I can you can go further and we can look at the it's a few devices. And then we can filter here, and we can look at, okay, we have some that are up to date. And here we have the inventory version, which we are collecting by our own inventory script. And then we have the OEM version, which we are getting directly from HP using HP BIOS update information. So we will show you how we get to this state a little bit later. But the main thinking here is that we can't trust Windows Update keeping us in compliance, because it doesn't right now, at least.
Yeah, and there can be a number of reasons for that. And I see, in the chat window, there's people asking, how does this solution compare with the driver and firmware update that's in private preview for controlling BIOS and firmware updates? So I don't want to specifically talk about stuff that's in private preview, but the idea here is, okay, I suppose from our point of view, we have a lot of people that are using a kind of a methods like modern BIOS management and stuff like that, and we wanted to take that into the cloud, but extend on it to do as much as possible in a secure way and give you as much reporting as possible. So whether or not some areas align with what Microsoft themselves do or with what a vendor does, it's up to you. I mean, the whole, I suppose, good thing that's coming out of this is we're finally getting this stuff. Okay, because this has been one of the areas in Intune that I suppose a lot of us are kind of lacking, saying, how do we control this? We had, to use a term, we had total control over this stuff when we were in the on-premise config manager environment. But when we went to Intune, it was a little bit into the unknown. And of course, the thing that's happened in the past 18 months to 24 months is the fact that now a lot of us are working more and more from home. So we'll find that Intune it is becoming more prevalent in our environment. So like Jan said there a minute ago, the
you should reshare your screen.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, should indeed. There we go. All right. So what like Jan said there a minute ago is you really need to test and be able to ensure that you can report on your current state. Now, we can't do a lot of that stuff natively. So let's just run through this. So this is what the traditional process would have been like. Now, again, I'm talking about a solution that myself and Nikolai would have coded originally, but yeah, if you're using the native stuff, this is kind of applicable too. But typically, we would have on-premise devices that are managed by config manager, and we have OS deployment, some form of admin service API integration, and of course, some PowerShell automation to determine, okay, I need this release of the firmware, I need this release of the drivers, and so on. And then it just happened. When we move, so we take config manager as an entity by itself. Okay, so we have OS deployment. We have the traditional method, the admin service, or custom web service. We have custom front ends, of course, which are actually something that we're starting to see now coming in. I've seen some other people use them for Intune pre-staging, and PowerShell. Okay, this was kind of the mainstay of how we got machines out there. Then we had the post-OS maintenance, and that's typically done through PowerShell or OEM software. Okay, and the one thing that we're talking about today is the HP script library. So if we look at what that looks like then for using a PowerShell built solution, okay, because you could do this yourself. I mean, you could have a script basically that's run in a PR and it's targeted all your devices, and it says get HP BIOS updates minus flash, and we do the BitLocker suspend, and you might say do the latest one. And then it will just happen, okay? So it will flash the BIOS. Of course, you might need to specify a password as well. But you could do that through PR. Thing is, it doesn't give you control. But if we look on the right-hand side, when we do the get HP BIOS updates, we actually return back every single version that's available for that device. So that got us thinking to say, well, in much the same way that we can control this stuff through config manager, well, then why won't we just apply the same logic, but in a cloud-driven way to say, for instance, okay, give us back all of the possible BIOS releases, but the one that I'm going to approve for my users in this instance is 1.01.07, okay, because I've tested that on devices out there. IT will test the 3.2, the ones at 3.2, but all production users will get that second one. And of course, the great thing is with that PowerShell module is you can actually specify the version. So therefore, all we need is a control mechanism. And, you know, that can be like a storage table. It can be an XML file. It doesn't matter what it is. But we just need a way of doing that. And, you know, this all sounds relatively easy, right? So the need to control. So in some enhancements that I'm going to make inside my driver automation tool, which is kind of part and parcel of this solution that we're talking about. Okay, so if you want to just go HP's native solution, do that. If you want to look at the Microsoft stuff that's coming, also do that. If you want a community solution that does a couple of different vendors, this is what we're giving you. So we're going to have an Intune only mode. And what that does is it allows you to, there's a provisioning mode where you can run it. Okay, and actually I could probably do a demonstration of that. Give me 1 second. Okay.
Does it work?
Live demo, huh? Hold
Yeah.
on 1 second. It's loading. It's getting there.
Yeah, so one of the requirements for using the Intune only mode is that you need to have an Azure subscription. so you can actually have a place to store that control file. So we are using an XML file generated from the driver automation tool, and we are going to upload that to Azure storage. And this is all going to be built into the tool itself. So that's what we are trying to show you now, how that works.
Yeah,
but we do need that Azure subscription to have that storage in. That's one of the requirements.
Okay, nearly there. I can drag it over to the screen now. 1 second.
1 sec. 2 seconds.
2 secs.
3 seconds.
Come on. Here we go. Refreshing. Okay. So if we go to Intune. Okay. Live demo. Hold on 1 sec. We'll get it going again. And it'll come across my screen now in a second. Okay, just see it flashing for a second. It's just, I'm going to get a background process for it to check some HP stuff, but it's just doing that against an XML that it's querying right now. So it will stop doing that in a second. Here we go. Okay, maybe I'll just skip on to here straight away. So you won't see the full subscription ID. And the tenant ID, but here what we are doing is we have a demo place created. Okay, so we've got a storage blob created in Azure, and up there we have some files that we've put up, which are basically the XML package files which were introduced in I don't know, quite a few versions ago. But we put all this information up into Azure, and then we're able to look at the production bias that we have in XML compared to the latest bias that we have then obtained from HP. Okay, and the idea is that you come along and your known devices, you come along here, you just select them, and then you go push latest production. And what it does is it replaces that version of that inside the XML, uploads the XML back up to Azure, and you're off on your way. Okay, your machines are then moving. During the onboarding process, what actually happens is you'll come in, you'll select the subscription, the resource group, location, and the Azure storage name, and you click on create storage, and it'll go off and it'll do that automatically. Okay, and then it will upload the files each time you run this.
There is, if you see that validate button, you can see it on the screenshot here as well. Because any storage account in Azure needs to have a unique URL. So if it's taken, you can't reuse it. So that's why we have the validate button. So you can test your name, click on validate, then it will verify if the name is available, and it will come back and say okay, and then you can create the storage.
Yeah, so it does all that stuff for you. So the new features will be Intune XML control support, Azure Storage Blob creation, and Azure Storage Blob uploads. Okay, so it's going to upload the XML, and we're also going to get it to upload Win32 files when we talk about drivers. That's kind of following up as well. So what does this look like then? Well, okay, we have the driver automation tool launched, the selections made, the cabinet is downloaded, and the XML is extracted. Much in the same way that the config manager works. XML created from selected models, XML uploaded to the Azure storage blob. Okay, and then we have a product remediation PowerShell script that runs and then basically uses that version information to control what happens. So we've been doing this with some meeting room devices because we had a client who, how many meeting room devices have they got, Jan?
Now they have like 900.
No, like I say, they had 900 of these meeting room devices, and they wanted to control the firmware on them because it was one of the things that they just didn't have control over. In fact, I think at the time they were kind of mostly config manager, and these were the kind of subset that were out there in Intune.
Yeah, so the meeting room devices was basically their first Intune native devices in their environment.
So they wanted a way to control this. And this is what happens, okay? So this is actually the toast notification that pops up is something that we can, of course, display or hide depending on what you want to do. But they wanted a way of reporting back on this. And the initial kind of version 1 was kind of, I suppose, a little bit unpolished, but it does the job. It does it perfectly well. But we wanted to extend this out, and we wanted to use some additional automation. So now this leads us into where we're actually going to start showing you what we're thinking and what we're doing with all of these different components put together. So, yeah, maybe you want to share out your screen then, and we'll do a bit of show and tell.
I will. So let's start with the basics, right? Where should we start? Should we start with the scripts that we are running the proactive remediations, or where do you want to start?
Yeah,
start with showing the XML.
Yeah, start with showing the XML.
So this is the XML. As you can see here, we are actually planning for more than just BIOS. We are planning to include drivers and soft packages as well. But we're not sure about what method we're going to choose to show this. But if you look at the BIOS packages here, you can see if you have seen the XML in the driver management tool before, you will see it's the same XML. It's actually called array of CM package. Actually, I have the package ID here because when we created this XML, we were still generating from the config manager database. But the plan is that we will not be dependent on config manager, so we can run this in Intune only mode, and then the package ID will not exist basically. So in this XML, we can see the models that we have, and this is what we query both from the clients during proactive remediations, but we also use this in logs and log collection and creating reports. To make this work, what we are using is 3 different things to make this all play together. So we have proactive remediation, which I've already blogged about. That's keeping the CMSL module up to date. I don't need to go into details on that. If you want to read more on that, that's already on our blog, and the script is already out there. This works perfectly, and it will keep the module ready for when you're starting to do the rest of the stuff. The same with the custom inventory. There is an update to that script that we are going to publish really soon that allows us to collect, for instance, the, I don't know if I have the script here. Let me see if I can open up that actual script and look. And see if I can find one of the things we do now that's new. Here we can see in here that some of the stuff we do here is new, and this is to handle the BIOS part of the script. So what we're doing here is this. Maurice can probably explain this a bit better, but all the different vendors have different ways of matching on the BIOS version and where to find the unique baseboard value or the unique device value that they use to match against their own inventory, or what do you call it? Yeah.
So I mean, it would make sense, right? If we had like a HP EliteBook 8560 or something like that, right? That model name would be consistent both from the shop where you buy it, the BIOS name and everything like that, and then the stuff that's in their XML. But that's not often the case. So different vendors have different unique identifiers. Okay, so with Dell, it's a system SKU. With HP, it's the baseboard value. And what you can do, so if I just take back control for a second, just to show you this on a HP device I have in front of me. But if I just full screen. So if I do HP device details, we can see the system ID. Okay, so in this case, it's an 8716. So that's the unique identifier for that machine. And that's what we should go on, because the trouble is that marketing gets involved, and there'll be like a Dragonfly G2 notebook. Then there'll be one for medical. There'll be one for this, one for the other, and we'll have slightly different variations on WMI names and stuff like that. Whereas the actual system ID could actually be the same. So this is what we want to go for.
Yes, that's what identifies the main board basically on the device that the BIOS is connected to.
Yeah, and you actually might find, so you can take back control there. You might find that you'll have certain models that will actually have the same baseboard value. So even though I think it's an 8450 and 80, I don't know, there's a couple of different models out there, but basically it can be the actual form factor. One's a 14-inch, one's a 15-inch, but they actually have the same motherboard.
Yeah. So the new stuff is the Biosubject management script, where what this script does is checks for maybe it's better to show the scripts from somewhere else. Do we have the script somewhere else? Anyway, the script checks here. It checks. We have a detection script that queries the XML in Azure. It verifies if you're running on the current version that we have released in XML or not. And if it's not on the current version that we have released, then we will run the remediation script that flashes the BIOS. Currently, this requires you to either don't have a password on your BIOS or include the BIOS password in the script. But we're working on a solution for that as well, if deemed necessary.
Yeah,
based on the feedback from HP devices, I don't think it will be necessary, but for other vendors, it most likely will. And we are working on a solution similar to Nikolai's Cloud Labs solution, where we can use the same kind of thinking and methodology to store the BIOS password for the device. So this is the scripts that are involved in the solution itself. And what we can see here as well on device status is that as long as the detection status here is without issues, it will mean the device is compliant with the current XML. But it doesn't tell us out of the box what kind of BIOS version is on these devices. And are we compliant with the OEM? So for that, we have built a log analytics report.
Yeah, and can we not just get that detail in the Endpoint Manager portal?
Well, we can get the BIOS version, can we? Can we? Now you're asking me a difficult question. I don't think we can get the BIOS version here.
Let's go and have a look and see. Okay, so we're getting certain information. Let's go down here. We can see the TPM version. But
yes,
we don't have that information. And that's one of the things, when we had Config Manager and we were doing stuff like this and we were reporting an inventory, we could just extend the inventory quite simply. So if you scroll down, there's actually an extend inventory button. I'm only joking. No.
Yeah. It's hidden. It's hidden.
Oh, it's hidden.
It's here. This is the download up here.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. No, this is what you get. There are some more items in graph then they show in this portal. There are a few more items in the graph, but as far as I know, it does not contain the BIOS version. I haven't checked in graph lately, but last time I checked, it's not in there. That's one of the reasons why we are using the proactive remediation to collect our own inventory.
Yeah, and if there's anyone here who is using Microsoft 365 Business Premium, we're sorry. This doesn't apply to you because it's proactive remediations. We would love for this to be part of your license as well, if that's what you're using. But unfortunately, it's E3 and E5.
Yeah. So the option for people on Business Premium would be to take the scripts that we have sharing with you and actually take them and install them as scheduled tasks. You don't get the nice feedback and report on your status, but it will still do their job. And you can log yourself directly to Log Analytics and get that data out if you want to. So you can still make it a viable solution even without proactive remediation. So this is what we have currently when it comes to the insight into the BIOS compliance report. So we do have in our XML right now only 6 HP models. Well, it's not really 6, but it's 6 different baseboards. As we can see here on the meeting room, for instance, it's 2 different baseboards. But it's the same model name, which again can get confusing. But it's 2 different baseboards, 2 different releases. And we have the same for the Firefly actually have 3 different baseboards on the same model.
Yeah, and that's because of regionalization as well, differences. Like I've got a machine that is an Irish one. You've got one that's Norwegian. Stoller has one which is actually a slightly different model. And you can see now all of a sudden why we don't use the model name, because it makes no sense. We end up with something slightly different.
Yeah. And if you scroll down, we can have a nice look into BIOS compliance devices according to XML. So right now I can see that 4 of our devices are running the same version that we published in the XML, whereas 1 is not. And then we have device according to OEM. It's the other way around. We have only 4 devices. Now we have 4 devices, not only 4 devices are missing the latest version from the OEM, and it's only 1 that has the correct version. And the reason for that is because Maurice did manually flash his device yesterday, and that's why it's now on the version that is in the OEM database, but it's not in our XML. And then we have the count by active model. This is the data. It should be 5 here as well, because we do have 5 machines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5. So it should be a different number here. But anyway, here you have the full list. You can see the devices. This is the meeting room device I have. And for this one, we can see that update is published. The reason for this is the XML version is 253, while the actual version on the device is 249. The reason this is not updated on the device as of now is the proactive remediation hasn't run since I updated the XML, because I updated the XML right before this call. But we can see that the XML is compliant with the OEM, means the XML status is okay. But the device needs an update from the OEM, and it needs an update from the XML. So the update is published, so now it's just sit back and wait, and this device will be up to date tomorrow. That's what I need to do.
And in fact, the story behind my machine being compliant with the OEM is kind of funny, because traditionally BIOS updates require AC power to be plugged in. Right? It's always been my experience. So I said to Jan, look, don't worry about it. I'll go and get some logic here and get the output, and we'll just see, and I won't keep it plugged in. And my battery was nearly 100%. So then we restarted, and of course it firmware update. So official guideline from HP on that is if your device has over 50% of charge on it and you do apply firmware update, it will apply. If it has less than 50%, it won't apply, but it will apply the next time it reboots with sufficient battery.
Or connected to power.
Or connected to power, of course. That's an option.
Yeah. So this is, but the data behind here is that if you look at I just want to show this one because this is something awesome that our friend and colleague Sandy helped us with. Hello, Sandy. And this is where we actually get data directly. This is very small. I am gonna zoom a little bit. We actually get the data directly from the XML file. So we are querying the XML file directly and parses the XML directly in the workbook and fetches out all the versions from the XML, all the baseboards, and then we get this list here. This is only based on the XML data. So if you add a model or change the Dragonfly to be one, what do you have, Maurice? It's one. So let's do a check. So on the Firefly, the latest version from the OEM is 161, right? So let's go into the BIOS packages and let me just double check your baseboard value before I go. You have which one do you have? Did I forgot to show that in here? Yes, I did.
Yeah, you're not showing the baseboard value in the query. But if you scroll up, you have them.
Yeah, but which one of them? That's what's one I was wondering about. Which one?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do have it, but can you get it for me?
Yeah, I can get it for you. No problem.
And then I just need to find, or maybe I can just update all of them. 0601, right? This is manual update. This is not how you should do it, of course, but you can do it this way. You can just do this manually as well if you want to. If you like doing manual stuff, that is.
Yeah, and anyway, even if you were to edit this manually yourself, when the driver automation tool runs again, it simply reads in the XML first as the first point in it, and then it'll update it. So it's not going to undo any changes that you did right here.
No, and then the OEM date seems a bit wrong. I am probably showing the wrong data here. I just wanted to update the XML with the correct data.
So my system ID is 8724 for the Firefly.
Yeah, but why is the OEM date wrong? Why don't I get the OEM date? OEM date shows the verse.
Yeah, you were returning back the.
Something wrong with my query. No wonder.
Yeah. Okay. That doesn't look good, Jan.
So OEM date on your Dragonfly is this date. So I'm going to add that to the XML so it's correct. I don't care about the. I don't care about that. I'm going to save it. I don't care about the date. So now I save the XML with the new information because we don't use the date for anything but reporting. So let me go back. Let me just click this one and refresh. And then we see that we have now a change here where we can see on the Dragonfly, not the Dragonfly, but the Firefly, we have also this one is changed now to update published. So what's going to happen now is that when he gets the product remediation run on his Firefly, it will update to this 161 version.
Yeah, and I've just put it into the chat window because it was actually a good coincidental example of a machine with a baseboard value that contains two completely different model names. So we have an EliteBook 850 G7 or a Firefly 15 G7.
Yeah. So that's why it sometimes will show multiple entries here for the same baseboard even. And we don't really care about the model name. It's just for reporting purposes that we want to have the model name in here. So it's easier to relate to than the baseboard value. Because the baseboard value tells you nothing really about what kind of device you have. I don't know if there is a way to actually ask HP programmatically or through the web from a baseboard value and find the model.
No, you can reverse it, engineer it through their XML, of course.
Yeah, which again will give you those 3 models. So it will not tell you exactly which one of those 3 models you're actually having. For that, you need a serial number. With the serial number, you will find the exact match. But for the BIOS stuff, we don't care. The only thing we care about here is the baseboard value, matching the baseboard value from HP, and then we will have the opportunity to update this.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat a little bit now on that Firefly while I have it up and running. And I'm going to go and get the remediation script and run it rather than me waiting for it to run.
It's a very quiet audience. Is this interesting?
Put your hand up. Peter, you don't count.
Sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
I think this is really cool, and at least the opportunity to just to be able to create this kind of report. And just to do this report, basically all you need is the custom inventory from us and the automation job that runs. Yeah, I can show you that as well while we wait for Maurice. So we have an automation job that we are running as well to actually get the BIOS information from HP for all the devices. And so how do we find out what devices we want to query HP for? Anyone want to guess? Where do we ask that information to find out what kind of devices do we have? Any ideas? No ideas? Maurice, where would you get that data from to find out? We're going to ask HP only for the models that we have in our environment now. Where would you go to find out all the baseboard values for all our models and query that?
And query it, log analytics.
So yeah, not the graph because it's not there.
No, not the graph. And I've just put in a screenshot there of the output coming from my machine. So it first of all read in the XML that was contained in the storage blob, and then it checked for a later version of the BIOS. It says it's flashing up to version 1.6.1. Was that correct? I think that was the one that you showed there a second ago.
Yep.
Okay, and it's suspended BitLocker. So now if I reboot, let's just let's see what happens. I can maybe show it on the screen.
Yeah, you can show it in the screen after. Right.
Well, it's just about to do it, Jan. So just.
Oh yeah. All right.
I'm down.
You are showing the BIOS update. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. I don't know if we can. Okay. We can just about see that. Hold on 1 second. It's not great because I don't have a pass through where I can actually show it on the screen. But if it starts doing the firmware update, which it should do, it'll give you an idea of about what it's actually doing. It's booting, taking time. Jan is getting impatient. Okay, don't know if we can see that without it chopping off my head. Probably not.
Yeah, it's
that's kind of useless.
You heard about background blur? It screws it up.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use my phone.
Take a picture.
I'm taking a picture. That works.
Yeah. Or what you could do is join the meeting from your phone and share the camera from your phone, and then you could see it working.
What is that voodoo you're on about?
You could just add your device to the meeting, you know?
Yeah, I could do. All right, so let's join. Okay.
If you manage to do it before it's done flashing.
Yeah, let's turn the camera around. Can you see that now?
Yes, barely, but we can see it. It's flashing the BIOS. So all you had to do though is run that script, right? And then it went for the version we have in the XML, and it's all good.
Yeah, and by the way, just so you know, I do not have the power plugged in right now.
No, so it should have more than 50% battery then.
Yes, it does have more than 50% battery. And incidentally, one of the things that keeps coming up time and time again is, okay, firmware. If we flash a machine and it loses the AC power on a desktop, for instance, it will break the machine. I've spoken to many OEMs about this, and it used to be a problem. But today, the switch over between the code is in the absolute milliseconds. So 99% of the time, or 99.9% of the time, I think it was mentioned to me, it just works. Okay, and you shouldn't have a bricking type scenario going on with firmware updates.
Yeah, so as we said a little bit earlier, currently, if you want to flash and in this way, and your BIOS is password protected, you need to add the password to the script right now. But if you, or else it's not going to work. So right now it doesn't support doing flashing without attaching the password to the actual script, which means the script will be locally on all your devices in C Windows IME cache, which is maybe not so good.
And who can look at that?
What?
Who can look at it?
Local admins can look at that. Because this run on the system, so...
And put your hand up in the audience if all of your users are local admins. No one's going to admit that.
I admit it. In Cloudway, everybody's admins.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we are working on that too to fix the. Like I said, we're looking into using the same technology and method as Nikolai has in the Cloud Labs solution, and use that to fetch the BIOS password. So that will mitigate that one. But for some OEMs, we was most likely going to need that for a long, long time. For HP, it looks like we can get around the password when they are shipping UEFI capsules instead. Oh, Sandy, you can't remove my admin rights. Well, yeah, you can actually, but she can. So
and I can
anyway,
restart your computer right now, Jan.
Yeah, thank you. So we have too many admins in all systems. So basically, what I'm doing inside the proactive remediate, now the automation runbook, is I actually ask Log Analytics directly. So I take this query here, and then I go in, and this is run like this, and then I get all the SKUs. Well, not the last 24 hours. Let's do a little bit more. Then we get all the SKUs. There is one empty, which I cater for, and then we do fetch stats, and this is using a managed system identity, and then we go in and parse that XML directly from HP, and we add this into Log Analytics into its own table. So in Log Analytics, we have the OEM BIOS information table. Which contains all the, this is every time, it writes a new one every time it runs. So I can do summarize, argmax, time generated, star by OEM by SKU, time generated by SKU. And then I will get a list of all my current baseboard values that are reporting. And then we have this SKU. We also have inside the device inventory. So if I take this one here, 8716, and I go into the custom device inventory. Custom device inventory, come on. There. system sku equals. I don't know why it copied that to date time. That was strange. Summarize. Argmax. Time generated. I manage device ID. And then I get the 3 models that are running Dragonfly. So you can see, even though me and Maurice's and Ståle's model is slightly different, it's the same motherboard. It's the same baseboard on all these 3 devices. So this is the 3 devices that has this this is the Dragonfly. This is the 3 devices that is running that model. And then we use this, we inject this, and then we parse that information and get it into the logs here. And then we can create this workbook that we just showed you. That is here. So right now, even though we know Maurice has flashed his BIOS, it's not showing here as it is okay. It's on the bottom here. So we see no, it's not okay. And the reason for that is because he hasn't reported inventory yet.
I'm getting there.
After he flashed. So he can manually run the inventory script, of course, as well, and get the data in here for demo. And then we can see that this one will update to being compliant.
Yeah, nearly there. It didn't break my machine, which is always a good thing, of course.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That would be a bad demo.
That would be a horrific demo, yes. Never ever do this. It'll ruin your life. Okay, I'm gonna send up my inventory now. 1 second. A script is running.
Shouldn't take too long.
Yeah, I'm just gonna tell you now when it's actually uploaded.
It's uploaded?
Nearly. Hold on.
There are some injection time as well in log analytics, so might want to give it a few minutes.
The demo gods must be spying on us today.
Yeah.
Yes, thankfully, I've been on the other side of that fence, and I don't like it. Okay, so inventory date, yeah, device, okay. We've uploaded 2.3 kilobytes, and that's actually something we maybe talk about, because a lot of people get really hung up on this is going to cost me a fortune. Log analytics, right? Not really. The amount of data.
Yes, just to take an example, the customer I showed you earlier with 23,000 HP machines, it's a total of 26,000 something machines reporting in on a weekly basis. And not everybody reports every day, because they might be offline, they might be shut down, they might be shut down over the weekend. But over 1 month, with our full app inventory and device inventory running on a daily schedule, they have injected 12 gigabytes of data. So 12 gigabytes of data. And then, of course, you can use the Azure calculator and find out how it's going to cost you. But the device inventory itself is negligible. It's like almost nothing. So you look here, and let's do, yeah, it doesn't matter. Let's do it in dollars. And pay as you go. So the most expensive price is $2 per gigabyte. So with full inventory for over 30 days, it costs them around $30.
And now, if you consider the price of maybe some other kind of third-party stuff that are out there on the market for kind of getting inventory, it's a lot cheaper. And of course, if you ever wanted to extend it yourself, all you need to know is Powershell.
So I actually have one report here in that customer environment, where we can see this that I'm not lying. Let me just see if I can find it quickly.
My data is in there, by the way, Jan.
Yeah, it is. I'll show that in a second then. Just let me show this one thing first. Yeah, so this is, oh, I need to do something funny here. I need to do something funny here to hide some data before I show this. You know, I'm going to take a screenshot of it. I can't show the screen. So yeah, this is actually over 30 days. Let me just get that screenshot. And it's doing screenshots inside the virtual machine. Give me a second. So this is their cost over 30 days, or their amount of data. So you see the device inventory is only 400 megabytes. And that's what you need to do the BIOS stuff we were talking about. You only need to have the device inventory. And you can even trim it down to only do the model and BIOS related information if you don't want to have the full stuff. It's just modify the script to your needs.
Yeah, and as Angelo said in the chat window, you know, reporting on 26 devices for $30 a month, that's negligible. I'd also say it's negotiable. So you can negotiate that with your boss to say, I want to put this in, and it's not going to cost you a fortune.
Yeah, so, as we can see here now, the Cloudway MD113, now 003, it's now all green. So that's how this solution works.
So
we have reporting.
Can we get a thumbs up? Do you like what you're seeing so far?
Yeah, Peter turned on the camera even and did a thumbs up.
Wow. We're double thumbs. We're blessed. Okay, and what we'd like to do is we want to extend this even further, right? So right now this is doing BIOS updates, but we also want to do like HP are doing, so BIOS settings. There are a couple of different ways of doing that, and we've thought about them. We're not going to show you today, but through HP new PowerShell module again, we can inject values, and we can gather values off of, for instance, if you want, tell me about, get a source machine, you run a PowerShell script, it gets all the settings, it puts it up into Azure, and then all of a sudden that's like the master for that model. That will go down to all the rest of the models. When can we try this ourselves, version 7? It's like, okay, you make plans and God laughs at you. I was meant to have this ready for today with like a blog post and everything like that, right? We have this thing called No Work Friday. Or no meeting Friday. Oh, yes, I call it No Work Friday. Yeah, sorry, my bad.
It's Community Friday or No Meeting Friday. So basically, we are going to work on more on this on Friday, for sure. But I don't think we can promise you to have this out in, maybe we could have a pre-release or something, but I don't promise you the version will be ready on Friday.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's not very far away.
But we're just ironing out the bugs. I mean, it does everything that we really want it to do, but just a couple of more things to sort out, and then we will release it. So the version 7 will work for both Config Manager and Intune. Oddly enough, is anyone here using with MDT? Because I'd really just want to get rid of that support now at this point. I haven't used MDT in a while.
But Maurice, we just got a request from a customer for helping them with some MDTs.
Yeah, I just instantly remember that as soon as I said it. So, but yeah, there's always different scenarios, but that was something different, Jan. But so we have one user there saying, I just used the HP client library with proactive remediation to change a BIOS setting on an Intune device. Yeah, exactly. That's basically what we are looking to do. But instead of doing the individual commands within the proactive remediation, we're going to store that out somewhere in Azure so that you have like your master BIOS list of settings for that device that pushes down to all of those devices. And the great thing is, if you push it as a script as well, it's going to happen on your devices as they're being going through autopilot, okay? Because it happens straight away during that process. So this is a really a cool solution.
Yeah, and the tricky part that we haven't really gotten to the bottom of yet is how to handle a password. We do have some ideas in your head. One is using, like I said, some technology like Cloud Labs is using from Nikolai. So it will most likely be in that area where we potentially will have the BIOS password in Azure Key Vault, and we can fetch it through Azure function with identifying that the requester is a legit machine asking.
Yeah,
so, that's the tricky part, is to handle the BIOS password.
it is. Yeah, and I'm just curious: is anyone here? You can stick your thumb up if you are. Does anyone here have a different BIOS password for every single machine in their environment?
One.
One. Did we get a thumb up?
Yeah.
Oh, we did. Okay. Wow. Yes, because I have come across that before. And then I think we need to go down the Key Vault route. It's going to be the only way where that managed device can obtain its own key. It would be so much easier if it was just password one for all of the BIOS settings. But anyway.
Yeah, or no password.
Or no
That's
password.
better. Yeah.
Well, yeah. We want some security, right? Like password one is better than nothing. No? Am I just alone here? Okay.
No. I mean, most customers actually use the same. Most customers actually use the same BIOS password on all computers, and typically it's not very long either.
And given the fact that Peter's on the video as well, and he's kind of staring at us, are we okay for time, Peter? How are we?
We can do a couple of minutes. The only thing is my groceries are delivered in 10 minutes.
Yeah, because we were curious about that timing, because the invite was for 2 hours, and it was like, are we going to talk about this in 2 hours? We don't have 2 hours of content.
No. It's normally 1 hour, and we can always go over. So
all right. So we went. I reserved 2 hours to keep going.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
No, I think we have told what we wanted to say today. And I don't know. I don't think we have any more slides, do we?
No, I think we just maybe have one thank you slide, and that's about it. So yeah, that's basically it from us. That's
awesome. And I feel that version 2 coming up of your session, and then with all the new features you have in your head. So already looking forward to that. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing this with us.
Yeah, you won't get a version 2 session before we can come to Amsterdam to deliver.
Oh yeah. Oh, exactly. Next time, just in person. That will be awesome. That would be really awesome. So yeah, we definitely need to arrange that. Hopefully this year, otherwise next year. Yeah, thanks guys for taking out the time of your schedule, and I see a lot of good feedback. So even from the US, John.
yeah, John is here early.
Yeah, thanks again. And next week we are back. Franz and Ronnie are back with the special guest Christian Brinkhoff. It's all about Cloud PC / Windows 365. And of course, like always, we thank our sponsors, and thank you for joining us. And have a great day, and see you next time.
Thanks for having us.
Yep.
And bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.